Thank you very much for the introduction. Actually, I want to start by showing you a demo that we built. This is a live demo. It's a public demo. You're invited to play with it, maybe after my talk, just in case something happens, So here what we're trying to do is we're trying to show trending queries in a week. That's nothing new. But we're trying to assign a leaning to them. We're trying to show what's trending on the left, what's trending to the right in a given week. So let me maybe first show you, like, the leaning doesn't seem to be random. So if you search for something, like lies, on the left you have things such as Fox News lies, Republican lies. On the right you have some things like Obama lies and Michael Moore lies. So this is just like to say, okay, the leaning doesn't seem to be random. There seems to be something that makes sense in this data. Now the other thing is the changes over time. So I want to show you some examples for this. So this is the week before the 9/11 anniversary, if you look at the dates. So it's late August, early September. And so on the right, you have things such as 9/11 jumper photos trending. I'll get back to this query in a second. But on the left, you have things such like the 9/11 coloring book. And so sometimes when we play with this data, there are these interesting things. And I don't know, you might or might not know what the 9/11 coloring book is. I didn't know. So then to explore it, you can then issue a Yahoo query. And you'll find out it's a coloring book for kids, where kids get to color images like this. So like the assassination of Osama bin Laden, and generally the evil, color the turban here, draw the beard there, kind of thing. And this was picked up by the political left as being pretty Islamophobic and maybe not the best idea, right? Now we were discussing the Occupy movement. I want to show you how the Occupy movement enrolled through searches. So it starts with Wall Street protests on the left. And then 1 week later, you then have Occupy Wall Street, like as a phrase, Occupy San Francisco, it spreads. Then you have new things coming up, 99%ers, Occupy Wall Street, Get Money Out, another term. And only then the right is picking up with Occupy Wall Street idiots and Occupy Wall Street anti-Semitism, as an example. I mentioned another, just quickly what you can do. So I had this query, Obama's aunt. So wherever possible, we ought to try to match queries to fact-checked statements. So I hope this is working now. So I hope maybe some of you are familiar with the work of PolitiFact, the PolitiFact website. Yeah, so for example here, there's a statement on PolitiFact. So the query is Obama's aunt. And we matched it to a statement made by Michelle Beckman. President Obama's uncle and aunt are illegal aliens who have been allowed to stay in this country. This is judged half true, not by some algorithm, but actually by journalists of the site, who then sort of take statements made by politicians and other people in the media and analyze them if they're true or not. In this case, it is half true. The uncle is still an illegal alien, but the aunt has been granted asylum. So this is why it's just half true. So in my talk, I want to talk about like how this works and what sort of what's behind this tool. So here's the demo, just the link. So it's called Political Search Trends. It's a public tool. You're welcome to explore. Oh yeah, maybe let's quickly show you one other thing that you can do is you can search left or search right. So if you have something like, let's search for climate, maybe. So ClimateGate 2.0, maybe. So then you can either search left and you'd see left-leaning results, or you'd search right and see right-leaning results for this query. And this can be sometimes interesting. So how does it work? So it starts with a set of labeled blogs. So we have a set of blogs that are annotated not by us, but by political scientists as left-leaning in this case, in particular the Huffington Post and others. Similarly, we have a set of websites, or in particular blogs, that are annotated as right-leaning, so the Drudge Report and others. In total, it's a couple of hundred blogs. The most important source for this was a publication by Benkler and others called A Tale of Two Blogosphere. And then we combined it with another public blog directory. Okay, now do we have blogs, so how do we get to queries? So suppose somebody searches for pizza as a vegetable, which is another funny query to explore. So first I thought this was a bug in our system, but then somebody said, no, this is a bug in the US political system. So so somebody searches for pizza as a vegetable on Yahoo, and then there's clicks this result on the Huffington Post related to this. Now the Huffington Post we have in our set as a left-leaning blog, so we count this as a vote that this query is left-leaning. Right? So now we can just do basic counting. So the most basic form would be this. So we look at this query. How many results do we have for the left? How many click results versus the total number of clicks? Now, this is what we tried, but this is sort of, one problem with this is that the volumes are not equally distributed. For example, in particular, the Huffington Post has a huge amount of volume that it creates. So this was sort of like tainting the data, like everything had like a left bias sort of. So we said, fine, we'll normalize this. We'll say both of the two camps have the same number of total votes, and they can choose how to distribute their votes among the different queries. That was already working a lot better. Then you still have problems with sparsity. If you have only 1 or 2 clicks, you might say it's 100% left, 100% right. So then you do some standard regularization to address these issues. So that's the basic idea. Some examples here, I showed you some before. For the paper and for the analysis, not for the demo, we also group things by Wikipedia entity. I can later maybe explain how exactly we do this. And sometimes you see funny things. So for example, if you look at the last example, you'd see that you have the same concern being picked up on either side, but being like framed differently, right? The left is worried, is Affordable Care Act unconstitutional, versus where the right is worried about, is Obamacare constitutional? Right? It's the same concern, but you see that this sort of framing coming in, which is kind of interesting. So once we can map queries to Wikipedia entities, we can also then group things for Wikipedia category. So here are some examples, essentially similar to what I showed before. So this is unfortunately not in the demo. This is just sort of like to explore and for certain types of analytics. Now, quantitative analytics you can do. So first, for this quantitative part, so I mentioned that we try to map statements or queries to fact-checked statements. So for example, we try to map the query cost Obama trip to India. It's another statement made by Mr. Bergman. And the statement is, the President of the United States will be taking a trip over to India that is expected to cost the taxpayers $200 million a day. It's a lot of money to spend on it. I don't know. Anyways. So, and this was just false. So generally what we try to do is we have a query and we try to map it to a statement. For the statement, we know the truth value according to PolitiFact, and we know the party affiliation of who said it. That's the basic idea. We have a query, a corresponding statement, truth value, and statement. Now, this mapping is not always as perfect as in the example above. So you might have something like Obama socialist as a query, and the corresponding statement is, well, President Barack Obama is a socialist, but it's not clear whether this statement really caused the query. Whereas in the example at the top, this is really the query didn't exist before the statement was made. So there's a different relationship. But still, we do this, and now we play funny games, right? So we want to see, is there correlation with the leaning, right? So are left-leaning queries more likely to correspond to true statements or to false statements? So anybody dare to have a guess? Left, well, we didn't find a correlation, so maybe that's good for. But then we say, but that's because we have to correct for who said it. So maybe the left picks up if it's a false statement made by a Republican or vice versa. And so maybe we have to condition on who said it. Still, we didn't find anything. But then, okay, what about the volume? And there we found something. So now this is normalized query volume. And you'd see that on average, queries that map to false statements have 40% more volume. Okay. Now, but this is not for the typical query. If you look at the distribution, it seems to be true that the false statements are more likely to correspond to like a high volume query. Now, we're not implying causality here. I'm not claiming that causality either way, but we definitely observe this type of correlation. Another thing, so unfortunately I don't have time to go into this. So we looked at it's also like the authorship of the statement versus the leaning. We looked at, what makes queries change their leaning over time, right? So if you have now longer tables, you can see queries moving from the left and to the right. There seems to be some correlation with volume bursts. Generally, some external thing happens, and then the other side picks up. We played a bit with sentiment analysis, where generally we observed that sort of right-leaning queries correlate with more negative sentiments in the results. But this is generally known that the opposition parties tend to be more negative, sort of. So this might not be Republicans as such. It might just be an artifact of being in the opposition. And this was stronger for queries, of course, that mention Democrat politicians. So if it's a query about the Democrat politicians, then the more right-leaning the query, the more negative the sentiment. I don't have time to show this, but we have a very similar demo for hashtags on Twitter, and they're leaning and they change over time. So this is not yet public, but if you want to see it, I can show it later. Yeah, just catch me after the session. And the last thing, a bit of advertising, is we are organizing a workshop at CIKM called PLEAD, Politics, Elections, and Data, just a couple of days before the election, actually. And the submission deadline is quite soon, but if you have something in the pipeline, consider going to Hawaii to present it. Thank you.